So my name is Zoe Clark. I'm Senior Self-Management Programme Officer at NASS, and today I'm chatting with Dems, who's a health and wellbeing coach, and we're going to be talking all about health and wellbeing coaching and also sharing some really practical tips for everyone watching as well. So hi Dems, thanks for joining. How are you doing?
Hi all. Yeah, I'm very good. I'm excited to be here and to just have an open conversation and to possibly add some value to others who are listening and are joining us today.
Absolutely. I mean, already just from us chatting before we went live, I've already learned a few tips and things for managing symptoms. So you've really added value for me at least. So please, everyone who's watching, do ask your questions in the comments. We'll have a bit of a chat, but we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So do pop them in there. And I'll also keep an eye on comments over the coming days as well. So if we get any questions added once we've been live, then we can always answer those. But perhaps just to start, Dems, do you want to kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your life with AS as well, because you have the condition.
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently a health and wellbeing coach at the NHS. I do this part-time and then I also do it privately. So that's sort of where my career is. That's what I do on a daily basis. And then my journey of AS started about 5 years ago. So I was always a very active, a very fit person. I mean, I started personal training when I was 18. So, you know, gym has been always my passion. Just any activities, really. It's how I lived since I was a teenager. I've just been very active. And then all of a sudden, I just got these pains that limited me to doing things. I would get a very severe back and hip pain. I've just seen myself sort of going down a path where I wasn't able to do those things anymore, those things that bring me joy and I love doing. And I didn't understand what's happening at first. And so, you know, I started going to my doctors, and obviously the first bit was maybe the sciatica, then mechanical back pain. You know, we went down the path and nothing ever really went away, just kept getting worse and worse. And so I was very lucky to be referred to a rheumatologist, which was a lovely doctor. I mean, I've heard so many experiences where people, you know, had symptoms and they weren't listened to. I mean, I've heard loads of experiences from my patients. So I was very lucky by a rheumatologist who was willing to look into it. And so we found the gene, the HLA-B27. We've seen some small changes through the MRI scans, and that's how the diagnosis was made. But it took me to get diagnosed, it took me about 4 years. So saying this story, it sounds like it was a smooth journey, you know, everything happened nicely, but it didn't. It took me about 3.5, 4 years, which was a very hard time, if I'm very honest, because, you know, I'm here, a 21-year-old living my life, and I can't do things that I used to be able to do. I generally can't even sleep at night because I'm waking up in pain, and I just didn't understand it. Maybe it's in my head, maybe I'm thinking things, you know, you just get all of these thoughts. So yeah, it was a very hard 3 years, if I'm very honest. But I mean, as soon as I got diagnosed, and I think others may feel similar, you know, you just get this weight lifted off your shoulders. I know I can't get rid of it, or whatever I can't do much about it. I can do as much as I can, but at least I know what it is. And now I can try and do the research or do things that will help me do those daily activities in my life. So yeah, I think it was a very nice feeling to at least know what it is and how to deal with it. So that's my sort of journey in a nutshell. If I can add anything else, just let me know, Zoe.
That's really helpful, thank you. And yeah, absolutely, you echo what we hear all the time, unfortunately, where people have, you know, years trying to get that diagnosis. As you say, once you have the diagnosis, although obviously currently there's no cure, at least you can kind of make those steps and know what to do, what not to do, and sort of work on how you can manage things as well.
Exactly, absolutely. And I just remembered, I think one thing that really helped me, and maybe that's something that others can take from this, I always had prepared for my doctor's appointment. So, you know, I've always had my form with my symptoms. I've always had my questions written down. I've always had, maybe we could do this test, that test, the other test, you know, just always put a bit of a structure to an appointment. So if I was to give any advice, and now when I work with my patients, I always tell them, you know, do you ask those questions? Do you tell the symptoms as they are, that, you know, they get worse or bad? And it's often, well, I forget or I forgot. And that means we're not helping the doctors themselves. So it's always nice to go in with an information on or a plan of the appointment, the way that you want it to go, and sort of the questions that you have in your mind, because it'll help you to ease it off, to feel a bit more at ease and relaxed. And those questions that we do have, they're very important to us. So to have them answered in an appointment that you've been waiting for, usually what, 4-6 months, you know, and you'll have many questions throughout those 6 months, so many symptoms that will show up. So it's very useful to track those down, make sure you bring it to those appointments. I think that's what kind of helped me to get it diagnosed pretty quickly. 4 years is pretty quickly for AS. I think usually it's about 10 years. It can be about 10 to 15 years to get diagnosed, and that's just the nature of the disease. So having those evidence and symptoms really helpful.
Absolutely, and yeah, I definitely agree, because the number of times I've had an appointment and I've not taken my list, and of course, as soon as I leave, I remember all the questions I wanted to ask.
Exactly.
We do also have on My AS My Life on our website, which I can pop a link to in the comments after the session. We've got a couple of sessions where we talk to a GP and we talk to a physiotherapist about preparing for appointments, and we've got a couple of resource sheets as well. So I'll pop a link in the comments, because it can be really helpful to help prepare for those appointments.
Exactly, absolutely, 100%. Definitely take those on board, and those sheets, and do those, because it helps the doctors a million. I mean, we know ourselves, they only have 20-15 minutes with us. So as much as we can help them, the more the better.
Absolutely. And in terms of your work now with health and wellbeing coaching, do you find that it actually kind of helps you when you're talking to patients and clients, where you can empathize almost?
Oh my, absolutely. Oh, so I remember myself, 18, a personal trainer, telling my poor mother with fibromyalgia, you know, just wake up and go gym and do those push-ups. I mean, but I can't blame myself. I was 18. You know, I don't know. I've never been, I've had, what pain do I know? A little headache, or, you know, it's just, I never knew what it is or what it could be, especially all these diagnoses that we have nowadays. I mean, there's loads out there, and every single one requires us to manage our life in a completely different matter. You know, let's talk hypertension, diabetes, AS, arthritis. Every single condition defines how you basically live your life, and you have to adjust to it and sort of redefine your life with it. So absolutely, yes. Having this myself, I totally understand that we need to manage it. And I think what I really love about my job and what it allows me to do is that I can work with an individual, and then we define what their needs are and what they need to do to manage it. I'm not here saying, hey, everybody needs to do this, and it's sort of everyone under the same umbrella. It doesn't work like that, because we're all very different, with very different values and very different lifestyles. And I think that's the most important thing, is to understand that you're an individual, and what works for you may not work for another, and what works for another may not work for you. So it's just figuring out what works for you as an individual in managing this condition, any other that you may have, really.
Absolutely. And for anyone who's not familiar with health and wellbeing coaching, do you want to just briefly explain what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So health and wellbeing coaching, they are sessions that usually last from 30 to 60 minutes. And throughout those sessions, we usually have so I prescribe about 5 to 6 sessions. Other coaches may be different and prescribe it in another way. And we meet every week or every 2 weeks. And throughout those 60 minutes, we identify the areas that you are perhaps finding challenging. We try to aim and raise your self-awareness to understand what are the challenges, what's getting in the way, what are the barriers, and what can we do from today, you know, the smallest thing that we can do to try and overcome those things and those challenges. So they're very open and beautiful conversations, after which we have a plan together. And I always say we don't know where the session is going to lead us, because as you start speaking, when patients speak, they find all of these things that they didn't even know they were there, because they don't have that safe space to share those thoughts or worries with anyone. You know, I've been working with patients with chronic pain and long-term conditions. And, you know, it's often things like, I just feel guilty for slowing down, or, you know, I used to love working out or walking, I can't, or I can't talk to my family because I don't want them to worry. And it's things like these that we can then discuss and have those conversations with patients. And they're very useful and they're very motivating, because at the end of it, when the patient has a small plan, and it doesn't have to be anything huge, but that's for that week or 2 weeks, it lifts them up. They feel, you know, they feel better and they feel in control a little bit more at least than they were previously. And I think often when it comes to chronic pain, there's a lot of uncertainty, and we have, you know, we lost control most of the days, and when there's bad days and they keep on going. So having that little control is just, it helps and eases off the worrying. And like I say, just having a safe space is really useful. So yeah, I mean, health and well-being coaching in a sentence is just having an open conversation about what is important to you and how we can have more of that. And hopefully by doing this, we will increase your overall well-being as an individual. And whether you have a chronic pain or long-term conditions or not, everyone's completely different, and everyone's needs are completely different. So those plans will definitely change depending on the individual.
Sounds incredibly valuable and incredibly rewarding for you as well, I imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had patients that weren't able to leave the house because of the pain and everything that's happening. But it was just a few things like, what can we do to then reduce the inflammation to make sure that it doesn't come severely? And what can we do so that you can come and go, at least go outside for some fresh air? And it was, you know, just things like, can we walk for a minute and get one of those trolleys with a seat? So we walk a bit and then we sit, and we walk a bit and then we sit. And then the person managed to actually be able to walk to the park and back. How good was that to someone that wasn't even able to leave the house? Obviously, there's more to it. They would then, whether it's a hot bath, hot blanket to then relax the joints, because if the body is not used to the activity and the movement, and you suddenly shock it with a lot of it, it's just not going to like it. So the idea is slowly, and that slowly will be different depending on who you are and how long you've had it for and what stage of life you're in. So yeah, I mean, I've had some great experiences and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Fantastic. And I know when we chatted before, you explained how with health and wellbeing coaching, the person who's being coached really takes ownership of it. How does it work, and why is that beneficial?
So there's loads of, you know, in a nutshell, I'm not imposing any of my beliefs on you. So I'm not here saying, Zoe, you're in pain, try some yoga, you know, maybe that will help. Or maybe it won't, or maybe it will, but I'm not here telling you what you need to do. And I don't think it's right for me to tell you what to do, if I'm quite honest. So what I'm here to do is to ask you, you know, what would your day be like if it was the best day ever? And then we explore that, and then we say, well, how can we make that happen? And then you tell me your list of ways, and then I say, well, which one can we start with today? And then you say, well, I'm going to try with this. And then as we go through the sessions, you can see that it's your plan. You came up with it. You know what makes you happy. How am I supposed to know what makes your life happy? I don't know. I'm here to find out about you and to help you make that happen. So how I see this it's just beautiful to facilitate, because what often happens is the patient that I'm with would start, they're having a conversation with their thoughts, with their heart, understand, remembering what they excites them, what they value. And then I'm just here facilitating. I'm just here to get to know you. And I think that's super, super beautiful and beneficial, because what happens at the end is the patient becomes much more confident in themselves, because they have now learned how to listen to those thoughts and put them into action, perhaps. And then that makes their life a lot more happier, because they figured it out and understood what they needed that was perhaps lacking. So yeah, I'm not here to define anyone's life or lifestyle. I'm not here to impose a diet or anything on anyone. And there are people who have the research and the knowledge, and by all means, if that's what helps others, then yes. I'm just here to raise your self-awareness and show you that you are able to do this, to be your cheerleader ideally. And I think that's so beneficial, because we often lack support. And maybe, I've had patients that their family members don't have the skill set to facilitate an individual that has chronic pain. And we shouldn't expect them to. They haven't been educated to do that. It's very scary often, so they don't know how to. So having that support from someone else is very beneficial, because you feel heard, understood, and in a little bit more of control, which can often lack, like I said before.
Sounds like a really empowering approach, and like you're really sort of teaching people those skills that then, long term, it's not something that, is just standalone. It's something that they feel they're confident in coming back to and sort of making those changes long term then.
Absolutely. And life is going to change, and there will be different phases in our lives. So, I'm at the beginning of my AS journey at the moment, and I'm managing this way. It will get worse later on, and I will have to live with it differently then. So having the skill set for me to now manage now, I will be able to apply the same skill set when my life will need to change severely, maybe. But I will be able to, because I know what steps I need to take, and I have that self-awareness in me. And that's what often patients have. They'll have 2 good weeks and then 3 bad. But it's good to learn that through those bad weeks, what can we do to not feel guilty? It's not your fault. You shouldn't feel guilty. And so having that safe space to discuss that it's just going really bad, and right now, like, life is really tough, and that's okay. It's going to get better. And when it does, we will start again, but we will have that plan there ready to start again. So yeah, it's just something that you can always apply. It's like a blueprint, really. And then in anything, it can be pain, it can be chronic pain, it can be career change, it can be applied to absolutely anything, because you're learning how to observe your emotions in your current situation, and then ideally do something about it, that you can, no one else but you.
And I know when we chatted before, we were discussing how it's common with a condition like axial SpA to kind of miss your life pre-diagnosis, or sort of look at where you are compared to maybe friends or family in a similar position who don't have the condition. Is there sort of any advice or techniques you have for this? Because I know it's something that people on the helpline have asked me quite a few times about.
Yeah, I mean, I go there all the time. I remember doing loads of things that I can no longer do. So one thing I always say, what you used to be, it's there, and it's good to remember it and be grateful for that, because we still had that time to experience life maybe with limited pain or with no, and that's amazing. Others don't have that opportunity. And then by looking back, we make a plan for going forward. So I always say, you use that time to reinvent yourself. And if I was to give one activity, I'd probably say, take a piece of paper, maybe your phone. Some people don't like writing or can't. Maybe an audio where you can, talk your thoughts out, and just spend some time asking yourself, what do I want? What excites me? what can I do right now with my limited abilities or limited energy that will be similar or bring me similar emotions that I used to feel before. An example would be, so I used to love hiking. I mean, I hiked all the tallest mountains here in the UK, traveled abroad. I used to love it. I cannot. That is like, I just cannot do it anymore. I know that I won't be able to. It's just too much pain. It's bad. So then I sit down and I say, okay, I cannot do that. It brought me loads of pleasure. But what can I try to do instead to bring me back to that experience or those feelings? And then I remember, what used to make me happy was the fresh air, the greenery, the silence, the peace. And then I say, okay, well, where can I get that differently? And I'm like, okay, well, there's loads of parks around here. So maybe I can try and go to a national park, or maybe to like a little cabin where I'm just surrounded by that peace and that nature. And maybe that's a 2-day get. I don't know, just anything that will bring me back those feelings, and I make a plan. So here in your situation, or in any other that is listening, what was around you that you really enjoyed? What did it smell like? What did you hear? What did you see? How did it make you feel? And then you sit down and you make a list of things that would be similar to that you can still hear that sounds and feel those feelings, and through different activities, and doing different things that you may possibly not be able to do now because previously you could have, but maybe it's an opportunity to do other things now and learn something else that will still bring you that joy. So I would say, I miss myself, and it's just how it is, and we shouldn't dismiss it. It's always good to spend time with it and remember it, but also then what can we do about it? And I think that's the most important question you should ask yourself. What can I do about it right now? I mean, I miss it, but what can I do maybe this week or today even to just at least remember a little bit of it?
A lovely technique, and anyone watching who, if you try that, if you sort of think of something that you used to be able to do, and you think of something that can replicate those feelings, then do let us know in the comments if you're happy sharing. So it'd be lovely hearing if anyone's tried that and found it helpful. We've got quite a sort of general question in terms of like any resources you'd like to share with anyone, and just sort of anything else you'd like to share really before we.
Yeah. So how long do we have, just so I know?
How long have you got? About 10 minutes-ish.
Okay, so the first resource, I'm more than happy. So I have a workbook that I've developed throughout the last year, and it's based mainly on raising self-awareness. So I'm more than happy to share one of those workbooks with the listeners and people that are with NASS. So I'm not sure what's the best way for me to send that. So you may need to maybe, I was saying I'm more than happy for people to reach out to me, maybe to my email, and then I'm happy to send that across. So if that's an easy way, then I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, we can pop your email address in the comments after the session.
Perfect. So if you want to try the book, it's basically based on, again, so what we touched upon today, redefining your health based on your current situation. So for example, if you are diagnosed with a long-term condition, or you are suffering with chronic pain, health will look very different to you than to an 18-year-old that has never felt pain and is very healthy. So the booklet, it's a workbook that takes you through questions. Again, I'm not imposing anything. It's just something that you can sit with and answer in your own time to redefine what health means to you, and how you can achieve that. So I'm more than happy to share that if you just email me, and then Zoe is going to include my email. And then we are offering I'm offering a free coaching consultation to any of the listeners. So that's going to be posted on my profile by the end of the day, and then anyone that is interested, you'll see how to get into the draw, and then I'll announce a winner by the end of Easter bank holiday weekend. So that's something I'm also offering. I mean, I'm just here to really give value and help others, because I think support is very important, and sometimes we don't have enough of it. I certainly didn't at the beginning, and it was very difficult. So if I can support in any way, then do reach out.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, and once your post is live, we can pop it in the comments. So anyone watching, do pop back and check, and then you can enter that competition for the free 1 hour call. And hopefully you found it really helpful in terms of the advice and tips we've shared today as well. So we do have plenty of time for questions. So if you've got any questions for Dems, please do pop them in the comments. And as I said, if anyone watching on Catch Up adds any questions in the next few days, we'll be able to keep an eye on those as well. So while waiting for any questions to come through, is there anything else you wanted to add? I know you've already given us loads of advice.
I'm not sure. I'm sort of thinking about the patients that I had, with chronic pain or with long-term conditions. I think one very useful tip that I would probably give is we need to learn to observe our bodies and to understand our own bodies. And I think one thing that is really lacking is we're not really taught how to move our bodies appropriately so that it doesn't cause us more inflammation. There's a fine line between doing and overdoing, which then causes you to be in bed and in a lot of pain. So if I was to give one tip, it would be, start very small if you are to move your body or to do any activities, and then slowly, gradually increase that, so that you don't overdo it and you don't break the boundary and then end up in an inflammation or in a flare-up. And that's usually something that we observe and do with our patients. So we come up with loads of ways, and some of which include, hot baths, hot blankets, weighted blankets. Some patients like to try to calm their minds and they meditate. Some have saunas. So I know that heat helps quite a few when it comes to inflammation and managing it. So I would say just find out what helps you and then ensure that you do it so that it doesn't cause a flare-up and that you can manage it slowly. I'll give an example. So if I went to cycling with my partner on a weekend, and I know that was way too much. So to ensure that I didn't have a huge flare-up, I spent about an hour stretching everything out. And then I'm lucky to have a sauna, so I went to the sauna. If I didn't, I would have went to a hot bath and just soaked it all out. And I had pain, of course, the other day. It just happens, but it wasn't as severe, and I could manage. And I was very happy because I implemented those little things that helped me the next day. And they take a bit of time, but I just find it's very useful if you want to start managing by yourself.
Such good advice, because we're always advising people, pace your activities, don't overdo it. But we're human, and human nature is that sometimes we'll forget or we'll think, oh, I just want to do that extra something, even though I know I'm going to be sore afterwards. So it's really good advice that if you do think, oh, actually, I think I'm going to be a bit more sore afterwards or flare, just doing those practical things to help kind of limit the impact it has. That's really good. Yeah, I'm always giving advice on pacing, but always with the disclaimer that I'm pretty terrible at doing it myself. So I'll definitely be trying that.
I know, me too. I mean, I get these bursts of energy, and I'm not sure. I mean, I've had quite a few patients having similar experiences, and it's like my family members know. So now they're like, you're too fast. You need to calm, because I don't see it. I'm just literally going. It. So they tell me slow down. So it's always nice to have someone to tell you if it's too much, but like you say, also to just be self-aware that if you went too far and it's like no going back, what can you do that helped you, because different things would help others.
And don't beat yourself up about it either. It's natural, it's going to happen sometimes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm just going to check on the questions and comments coming in. Hi Robin, thanks for joining us. So Robin says, I'm constantly reinventing myself, so I'm pleased to hear this mentioned. I'm also constantly reinventing myself with interests and work, career, and rather abandon things or just do things differently, either slim down in involvement and commitment or with a parallel interest. I've had loads of issues with education and work for over 30 to 40 years, and rather than give up and do nothing, one example is I volunteer a lot in the musculoskeletal community, which I can turn up and down in terms of involvement. This keeps me physically and mentally active, keeps my mind away from pain and related thoughts and issues, etc. It's just a lack of income as a downside. Absolutely, that's really great advice in terms of, you know, looking at volunteering where you can change the amount you do depending on how you're feeling. Definitely.
Absolutely, well done. I mean, that's exactly what this is to try and do different things that you know is going to bring you pleasure. So well done for that. That's very good to hear. There's also on the work part, there's a link, there's an agency who offer work for people with chronic pain and chronic illnesses, and there's opportunities to work from home. So when I find it, so I'm going to send it your way, and then maybe you can post in the comments for anyone who is interested in just trying at least to work part-time or maybe 1 day a week. I know that there's quite a few opportunities, and the agency is known for working with people that have disabilities and long-term conditions.
That would be wonderful, thank you. I'll definitely share that with everyone. That sounds perfect to manage the amount we're doing, definitely.
Yeah, and I've had quite a few patients where, do you know what, it's just hard. This is known, AS is mostly young people are quite affected by it, so eventually your work is going to be affected, especially if you work physically. So having those backup plans or those ideas for what could I do to still be able to work and not actually have a flare-up, it's just very important to think about those questions. And I know there's quite a lot of organizations now that are quite flexible, so just finding those and seeing if there's any opportunities there is definitely worth a try. Just some tips on my side.
Thank you. It's been so valuable today, so thank you so much for your time and sharing everything. And yeah, for everyone watching, I'll pop those links that we discussed to your email address so you can get the workbook and all the resources that we've mentioned as well. And once the competition is live, obviously I'll share your post in the comments as well, so everyone can enter the competition. We've got lots of people watching, but no other questions coming in at the moment. But as I said, we'll keep an eye out and answer anything as it pops up over the next few days, as well as people catch up over the long weekend.
Amazing.
So thank you again so much, Dems. And yeah, I'll pop a link as well to a place where everyone can share feedback on these My AS, My Life sessions as well. So if anybody has a few minutes now, that would be great if we can get some feedback and sort of hear what you'd like for future sessions, as well as things we can improve. So thank you again, Dems. Is there anything else finally before we sign off?
No, I just want to say thank you. Everyone will know where to find me, so if I can help in any way or support, so please always feel free to reach out. I'm here to do that. And yeah, just take it easy and take care of yourselves. I think that's very important in life. Just be patient and gentle. I always use the word gentle and kindness. If we're kind to ourselves, it will come back. So yeah, just thank you. It's amazing to be a part of this.
Absolutely, yeah, and incredibly valuable, and we've got lots of thank yous coming in as well. So thank you everyone for joining us live, and yeah, do let us know in the comments how you found the session.
Thank you to all.
Thanks again, take care, and I'll stop the live stream there.